for my son's father. Sorry. He said, well, can I pray with you?
I just turned this on. I have no idea what this witness is, but just turn it on. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what are we doing? Are we in a sentencing phase where people are like testifying on how this affected them? Or are we in the evidence phase? I have no idea what this witness is, so maybe she has something to say that's important.
It was so sweet. And at the time,
Got a tattoo ring? Red hair?
I had lost a lot of faith in God.
Are we at church or are we at court?
Sorry to interrupt, but I'm just going to want to maybe help with a few questions, okay?
Sure.
At that point, did you know what Mr. Floyd was doing there at the Salvation Army?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. He worked there as a security guard.
Okay. And so he came up to you and tried to comfort you?
Yes.
Okay. And was that the beginning of your relationship?
Well, not that part. That was just Floyd. Afterwards, he had asked me who my son's father was, and I said, you know, we're co-parent and we're not in a relationship, and that's when I like to say his voice dropped like 2 levels, even though it was deep already, and he asked me if he could get my number, and we had our first kiss in the lobby, and that's when our relationship started.
How the hell
And
did
after
we get
that,
a witness for a relationship?
How close did you become?
We were very close.
And so I'm not sure you told us when this was. Do you recall roughly, not the date, but the year at least?
In August of 2017.
Okay. And up until his death, did you continue to be in a relationship with him?
Yes.
Can you describe, how close how often you saw each other during those 3 years?
Just about every day we saw each other.
So again, I just turned this on, so I have no idea why they called her. Normally, when a prosecution puts on witness, they're trying to prove their case. So how does an ex-girlfriend have anything to do with whether or not this guy killed him? I'm not connecting the dots. Maybe I'm way off.
Did you learn, whether he was new to Minneapolis?
Oh yeah, on our first date, like most people do, we went over like our histories, and he told me he was from Houston.
And what kinds of things did the two of you do together when you get together and do things?
How does this prove this guy killed him?
To the city, so everything was kind of new to him. Everywhere we went was new to him. He made it seem like, I was new to my own city. So we like to go to, he lived right by Lake Bade-Makaska. We like to go down there a lot and, enjoy the outdoors. We like to go to the sculpture garden and just, walk around. We went out to eat a lot.
Why?
Because Floyd loved to eat a lot. He's a big man, and it took a lot of energy to keep him going, and he loved food, and so did I. It was fun. It was an adventure always with him.
Did you know where he was working, prior to his death? Had he been working someplace?
Yes, he was working at Conga.
What is
Latin Bistro?
Okay. What is that?
Conga is a restaurant, but also a nightclub in the evening.
What did he do there?
He was a security guard. He was head of security there.
The bouncer.
And did he at some point lose that job?
Only because of COVID. I mean, it shut down because of COVID.
And you had met at Salvation Army. Did you, learn eventually that he worked there?
Yes, I knew that evening that he worked at the Salvation Army.
And he was a security guard there?
Yes.
All right. And at some point that job ended, correct?
Yes, I think that maybe a year or so after I met him.
And in the time period leading up to his death in May of last year, let's talk about January to May when he passed. How often were the two of you seeing each other?
Of 2020?
Yes.
At the beginning of the year, we had not seen each other, kind of separated for a little while, but from March until May, we spent every day together.
And we have a photograph of Mr. Floyd. I believe we showed that to you in a prior meeting with you, correct?
Yes.
And you recognize that as him?
Yes.
All right. And you're going to offer Exhibit 247?
247 is received.
Put that up. So I'm showing you Exhibit 247.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. See, if you touch the screen, it's going to write on there, so sorry. You familiar with this photograph?
Oh
Yes.
my God.
What
Are
kind
you
of photograph is
kidding me?
this?
Can we bring in everybody that loved George Floyd to cry so we can convict this guy? How does, man, I could be sounding like an idiot. Maybe she's got some relevant information on how this proves or disproves that Chauvin killed this guy or didn't kill him.
Don't take the time to maybe do the certain angles that everybody else does.
And so this is you believe, a selfie that he took?
Yes.
All right.
I believe it was outside of the Salvation Army.
Do you recall about roughly when this was taken?
From the sweater he was wearing, I think it was the fall of 2017.
Looks like a hoodie. Maybe it is a sweater.
Did Mr. Floyd have any children?
Yes.
How many children did he have?
2 girls.
And did he try to be a part of their lives as much as he could?
Yes, he loved his girls.
Oh, he loved his girls. He's out passing $20 counterfeit bills. He was in prison. He's out on parole. He's got fentanyl and drugs in his system that he's buying somehow when he ain't got a job. Yeah, he loved his children. Oh my God.
When you knew Mr. Floyd, did you learn of his mother's death?
Yes.
Do you recall when that was?
It was in May of 2018.
And did you see, well, describe, if you would, for the jury, what you saw his reaction to his mother's death.
What the? How is this related to Chauvin killing him? I guarantee you there's a woman on the jury crying.
Floyd is Floyd's what I would call a mama's boy. I could tell from the minute I met him. And when he came back from Houston,
He's a mama's boy because when he's out committing felonies and been to prison and he's fighting with the cops with fentanyl in his system, he's yelling mama. That makes him a mama's boy. Really?
he seemed so sad. He didn't have the same kind of bounce that he had. He was devastated. He loved his mom so much, and I knew that. He talked about her all the time.
My horses are out there hollering, so I gotta go let them out. So I'm gonna pause this. I'll come back from this cry fest. Okay, I'm back. About using the same
Yes.
amount.
And taking your attention to March of 2020, and there was a time in March when you knew he was back to using pills, is that right?
I thought his behavior had changed.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
I think when you know someone who suffers with any type of addiction, you can start to kind of see changes when they're
Oh, he's a victim. It's not his fault. Oh, he's suffering.
like behavioral changes that I noticed in him, and it just made me suspect.
And in March of 2020, did you also kind of fall back into using
Yes,
some?
I did.
So you, and were you two using together back in March, or you just suspected his use?
In March, yes, we did use together.
But you both have kids.
and you-
Wow.
Was there a period then after March where you thought the two of you had both been able to quit for a while?
Yes, a long period.
And then kind of going forward to May of 2020, was there a time when you thought he might be using again?
Yes.
So in May, when you thought that, what led you to think that?
It was the same type of thing, just behavior changes in Floyd.
And did you,
If you're using and your partner's using, you both know when the other's using. This ain't a behavior thing. You know.
and he was aware of that?
Yes.
And when he, well, let me ask you this, I guess. In May of 2020, did you know where he was living? Just the general area.
Yes, yes.
Did he have his own place where he stayed?
Yes, he lived in a place in St. Louis Park,
Did he have,
side by side.
did he have roommates there?
Yes, two.
Did the two of you ever live together?
No, we stayed at each other's places, but we didn't live together.
That will affect my welfare check.
So in May of 2020, do you recall the last time you spoke with him?
Yes.
Do you recall when that was in relation to his death?
It was the day before he died.
And how did you talk to him? Like by
By
phone?
phone.
Okay. And did you know what he was going to be doing that night, or where he was going to be staying?
That night I knew he said he was going to be staying at Sylvia's.
Did you know who Sylvia was?
Yes, she's a friend of ours.
And so as far as you knew, he was going to be staying at a friend's house, Sylvia's.
Yes.
And do you recall him saying what the plan was for why they were going to Sylvia's?
Well, Floyd had, made his Minneapolis family here too, and a lot of the people that he was friends with were from other states, and almost everybody had lost their job within that time, and he was feeling kind of lonely and just wanted to hang out with his friends, and so a lot of people that worked at the Salvation Army with him and other people that just stayed there, and they were,
People who lose drugs don't hang out with friends because they feel lonely. They hang out with friends because they got dope, they got a place to stay, they use people. I noticed he wasn't staying with his kids. Anybody ever notice that?
Talked to him as the Sunday before his death.
Yes.
You told the jurors earlier that sort of the classic story leading to an opioid addiction, having injuries and prescriptions.
Yes.
Had Mr. Floyd been an active person physically?
Yes, he's very active.
Okay. And what do you mean by that? What types of things did you see him doing?
Well, Floyd liked to work out every day. He lifted weights that are far beyond anything I could lift every single day. He did sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups, just within his house.
Why she be
If
talking
he
kind
went
of
out
funny
and
every
about,
once in a
he
while?
would go running, biking. He always played sports. He loved playing sports with like neighborhood kids or anybody really that would pick up any type of ball or
Yeah, I want my neighborhood kids playing with a drug dealer who's committing felony, passing counterfeit money that just got out of prison. That's who I want hanging out with my kids in the neighborhood.
boating. We'll take walks. But he was the type of person who would just run to the store.
When you were with him,
Cocaine is an amazing drug. It makes you do a lot of things fast. So does methamphetamine.
difficulty breathing,
No.
and did he have did he have sports injuries that he complained of?
Yes.
You mentioned earlier.
Oh, here we go. Because he played sports, he was such a good guy that he played with the neighborhood kids, and that's why he took drugs, and that's why it wasn't his fault, and that's how we're going to get to Siobhan killed him because he was on drugs. Really? How is this proving or disproving anything about the incident where he died? I don't get it.
He did those things that led to his prescriptions, those injuries that led to his prescriptions for opiates.
The
injuries that he had to his neck.
Oh, yes.
Funny, I've never met a drug user that said, oh yeah, I just start taking drugs because I like the high and I know it ruins my life and I don't care because I just enjoy the high. Even though that's the reason, none of them ever say that.
And I think I forgot to ask you, was there a time in 2020 when the two of you took a test for COVID?
Yes.
And did you learn the results? Did he tell you the results of his COVID test?
Yes.
What did he
His
say?
were positive, mine were negative.
And do you recall when that was?
I believe it was late March.
And so because of that, did he quarantine for a while?
Please.
Yes, he was already quarantining, but
I thought he was playing with the neighborhood kids. Running to the store. You know, he was quarantined. He was a responsible guy. He was doing his drugs
Thank
while
you, Mr.
quarantined.
Ross. That's the only questions I have, Your Honor.
Mr. Nelson.
Well, I sure do wish I knew what the hell
you.
this has to do with whether Siobhan killed him or not. Let's see if her attitude changes like every other witness. She's the girlfriend. Of course she's biased.
Good morning, Ms. Ross.
good morning, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to hear about your struggles with opioid addiction.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with the jury. I have some follow-up questions about your experiences with Mr. Floyd.
Nice initial contact, bonding. Very good.
Before I get into that, I want to just go through a few things with you. You have been interviewed by law enforcement and prosecutors several times in connection with this case. Is that correct?
Yes.
The first interview that you provided was in May. It was on May 31st of 2020. with an agent from the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension named Nathan Adams, as well as an FBI agent named Christopher Langert, correct?
Yes.
And you, have you had an opportunity to review a transcript?
All these multiple interviews are bad because people are inevitably going to change it. And this is great that he gets all these in.
On December 14th with the prosecution team in preparation for this case, right?
December 14th.
December 14th. Would you
It could
dispute
be.
me if I told you that?
I believe you.
Okay. Then you also had an interview back in June of 2000.
Wow. Look at all those government interviews. Anybody think that they're not coaching and they're just asking the same questions to verify what they already know? Or are they trying to get other information that they can use better? Wow. That looks bad to me.
Of this year.
That sounds right.
And then finally on March 31st, which I believe was just yesterday, right? And you understand, again,
A lot of time prosecutors like to meet with drug witnesses before the day of the trial and say, don't use. And usually when they meet with them the day of the trial, they're under the influence.
Yes.
and in fact, I think yesterday when you met with prosecutors, you went through the FBI transcript from that meeting back in June.
Yes, I did.
Okay. So
Can we say coaching the witness? All these
I
interviews
know
were
that
coaching?
you and Mr. Floyd both struggled with opioid.
Government, keeping it fair. We get to coach our witness 4 times. Defense never gets to talk to her till now.
All right. So when you first met Mr. Floyd, you would agree that throughout the course of your relationship, you and Mr. Floyd both had a struggle with opioid addiction.
Yes.
And there would be periods of time where you would both be using, and there would be periods of time where neither one of you would be using, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And there would be periods of time where one or the other may be using, right? Like you may have been
Yes.
using and he wasn't, or vice versa.
Yes.
All right. And you knew at some point Mr. Floyd had gone through some treatment programs, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I kind of want to just zero in on the time frame from January of 2020 until
I've said this in other videos, I really like this attorney. He seems very personal, not emotional, just the facts, treats people decent, doesn't get confrontational. His tone, his mannerisms are non-threatening.
in terms of your statements.
Okay.
He should be pointing out inconsistencies in how she changed each
Well,
time
let
she
me
was interviewed.
strike that. You testified that there were periods of time where you would get a prescription for, or Mr. Floyd would get a prescription for opiates legally, meaning through a doctor, right?
Yes.
And you'd go to a doctor, you would get a prescription, and you would use those pills, right?
Yes.
And then there were other times where you would buy other people's prescriptions from them, right?
Yes.
And then there were times when those weren't available, and so you would have to buy different types of pills, right? Unknown sources, so to speak.
Yes.
And are you familiar with Maurice Hall?
Yes.
And
That's a dealer.
was Maurice Hall the person that you and Mr. Floyd bought controlled substances from?
We had.
I'm going to show you a photograph. And just to you, you'll be the only one who can see it at this time. It's been previously marked as Defense Exhibit 1006.
Okay.
1006. Wow.
Can you see that photograph, ma'am?
No.
Just to her.
No.
Oh, sorry, I gotta hit this. Can you see that photograph, ma'am?
Yes.
Is that the person you know to be Maurice Hall?
Yes.
And can you just generally describe what he's wearing?
Red hat, red pants, and a black and white shirt.
And that is up in the upper right-hand corner. Would you agree that that has the date of May 25th, 2020?
Yes.
And that's the person that both you and Mr. Floyd had previously purchased controlled substances from?
Yes.
Illegally purchased. He didn't want to say it, but he'll say it later.
In the January and February time frame, were you and Mr. Floyd clean and free from using opioids?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. In the January and February of 2020 time frame, did you and Mr. Floyd, were you clean and sober? At
January and February?
Yes.
We weren't really talking to each other, so I wasn't around him.
Okay, so you kind of were on the break at that point, right? And then you reconnected sometime in March, right?
Yes.
And was
On the break means we hook up sometimes and have sex and do drugs together, and then we don't see each other. But she's crying because he hung out with the neighborhood kids, and he had kids of his own. Somehow they always had time and money to do drugs. Amazing.
hospitalized?
We went to the hospital a couple times in March.
Okay. He was hospitalized for a more extended period of time in March, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's the incident I'm talking
Okay.
about. Okay. I understand he went once because he had hurt his hand, like cut his hand on glass or something. And that was a shorter hospital stay?
Yes.
But then there was an extended hospital stay
yes.
in March.
I wonder if he had
Can you
insurance
describe
paying
to
for
the jury
this.
what
Never
led
mind.
up to that hospital stay?
That's why we needed Obamacare.
Yes. Floyd, I went to go pick Floyd up from his house that night. I thought I was taking him to work. He wasn't feeling good. His stomach really hurt. He was doubled over in pain.
Some people may call that withdrawals from using dope and not getting it, so you go to the hospital so they will give it to you for free.
We went to the ER and they were checking him out in the ER, and it was getting late and I had to get home to my son, so I left that Friday night.
Oh, she had to get home to her son, so she's a responsible mom. Except when she's doing drugs now and then and going to the hospital with George for buying illegal drugs.
Several days with him at the hospital, correct?
Yes.
And did you learn what caused that overdose?
No.
At that time frame, did you learn that Mr. Floyd was taking anything other than opioids?
No.
You did not know that he had taken heroin at that time?
No.
I bet you in one of her statements she said she did. That's why you asked that. He seemed surprised at her answer.
Now, then in March of 2020, you got some pills, right? You remember describing that?
Yes.
And can you describe what those pills were like?
How, like, physically?
Physically.
Well, they look different to me than a normal pill. They seem like they were thicker.
Were they uniform in their size?
They weren't.
Did they have markings on them?
Yes, they did.
And you and Mr. Floyd both had those pills?
Yes,
And did you consume some of those pills?
I did.
Did they have
So you get pills that aren't the same, that have markings that you don't really know what they are, and you took them. But you had to get home to your child because you're a responsible mom. Wow.
and what was different?
Usually, a opioid to me is like it's a pain reliever. It's something that is, kind of relaxing, takes your pain away. The pill, that time, it seemed like it was a really strong stimulant. I couldn't sleep all night. I felt very jittery,
You felt what?
very jittery.
Okay. And so these were pills that were not bought from someone who you knew to have a valid prescription for Percocets.
No.
Were these pills purchased from Mr. Hall?
No.
Mr. Hall's
So
gonna
when
have some problems
was
after this
this,
trial.
and were these pills before or after Mr. Floyd was hospitalized for his overdose?
Come on, dude, you can't expect somebody to remember when they're using drugs all the time.
But you described when you picked him up that
Why
night.
is he badgering this witness?
So you must have reconnected because you had kind of a little bit of a break,
Yes.
right? Reconnected. When you picked him up that night, he was just in incredible pain, doubled over, right?
Yes.
His stomach hurt very bad.
Yes.
Now, I want to focus our attention on your statement that you gave to the FBI. And again, you've had an opportunity to review that transcript in its entirety, right?
Yes.
And you've had an opportunity to answer questions of that the prosecution had of you regarding that statement as late as of yesterday, right? You and I have never met before, right?
Not that I believe.
And so I've not had an opportunity yet to ask you about some of the information in your statement.
No.
But the government has 4 different times. But it's not biased.
When you met with the FBI, you informed FBI agents that
Going to object to improper form of cross-examination.
Sidebar.
Okay, so the objection was improper form of examination. He's going over the statement. I don't think it's improper. He's allowed to go over a previous statement and ask her questions. He may have just asked it wrong. I think he can ask it, when you met with the FBI on this day, were you asked this and what was your answer? And I'm not sure what the purpose of this objection is. I mean, I don't think this prosecution thinks he's going to keep the statement out by objecting, and he's going to stop this guy from questioning her about a prior statement given to government. So obviously this FBI statement hurts the prosecution. That's why he's objecting. As a juror, you should understand that when the government tries to stop things from coming in, they don't want you to know something. And that should make you question their case right there. They should want you to know the truth. And if they have nothing to hide, they should hide nothing. And the fact that he's trying to hide her FBI statement from coming in tells me it hurts him. It's contradictory to previous statements. It hurts her credibility, and he wants to keep it out. So now he's trying some fancy stinking lawyer BS. It's inappropriate. He's asking it wrong. He should have asked it this way. He's leading, whatever else they're going to come up with. But we'll see how this goes. I really still don't understand why they brought this witness on, what she knows, unless she was there and saw something.
We'll wait for him
Thank
to
you.
formulate the question.
Thank you.
Let me back up a little bit. Did you know Mr. Floyd to spend a lot of time with Mr. Maurice Hall?
I wouldn't say a lot of time, but he spent time with him, yes.
Right. And
How would you know if it's a lot if you're not around him a lot?
would you agree that that was kind of from time to time that he would spend time with him?
Yes.
And
That yes
you
sounded
didn't
like a
that,
question.
did you?
Excuse me, I didn't like Maurice very much, no.
Would Mr. Floyd be honest with you when he told you that when he was with him?
I'm going to object to Your Honor's characterization of
False respectfully.
That is sustained. You don't have to answer that one.
Yeah.
She can't say what he thought, that he was truthful or not.
You knew Mr. Floyd would purchase narcotics from Mr. Reese or Maurice Hall?
I don't know that. I speculated that.
Do you recall the FBI agents asking you, did Mr. Floyd purchase controlled substances from Mr. Maurice Hall?
Yes.
And do you recall saying yes?
I did say yes, but I did not see
I'm
it
gonna-
with
I'm
my
gonna
own
object
eyes.
At this point.
All audiences.
Okay.
She said
Now,
yes. in an official statement.
The pills that were purchased in March that you described,
Yeah.
did you know that those were purchased from Mr. Hall?
What,
The pills that you described in March of 2020?
no, I didn't know.
But those are the pills that kept you up, you said, all night, right?
Yes.
Did those pills continue to be around from March through May?
I don't know.
Do you recall the FBI asking whether you were getting those same pills from the same source from March to May?
I don't recall that question.
Would it refresh your recollection to review a transcript?
Yes.
Okay, so the objection was he was just trying to go over the statement, and evidently there's some rule that you can ask her if she said something, and then if the statement can impeach her, then you can bring the statement in to say, do you recall this, and to refresh your recollection. So he's just made it more difficult to get the information. Again, this tells me the prosecution doesn't want the FBI statement in. He knows it hurts their case, which means he's got a weak case, which means they're hiding other shit if they're hiding this, which all prosecutors do. So, I don't know if they're talking or not. Oh, they are. And I don't know if I remember, I told a story with that attorney where I turned in that dirty DA, Jeff Reisig, and he was sitting there reviewing stuff. And my attorney gave him emails that he sent me and answered me. And he says, "Is this refresh your recollection?" He goes, "Nope. I have no recollection of that." He goes, "Do you agree that's your email?" "Yep." You don't remember writing this?" "Nope." "And it doesn't reflect?" "Nope." He just denied. That's how good liars and good lawyers work. Oh, sidebar. What happened? I missed the question. So now they're in a sidebar. So the witness can basically say, that's what the FBI wrote, and that's what it says I said, but I don't remember saying it. As I sit here today, I don't remember. And now you can't prove perjury. If she says, no, I didn't say that, now you get into perjury because they have a transcript of her saying it with witnesses, and now she's saying she didn't say it. But if she says, I don't remember saying it, she can lie and change her statement and change her testimony. Again, court games to where we don't get to the truth or justice. It's other agenda.
Drug intoxication.
Let's go back in.
So you've now had an opportunity to review that portion of the transcript, right?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that the FBI agents asked you from March to May if you continued to purchase those pills from the same source? Did they ask you that question?
They
Yes.
did.
And you responded, once in a while when we were desperate. Agreed?
That's what it says, yes. I don't recall saying
I'm going
that.
to object as non-responsive.
Okay.
Overruled. No, you don't remember that.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Overruled. The answer will stand.
Too late. She already got it out. Can't unring that bell. I don't recall saying
And
it.
Mr.
He objected.
Floyd's overdose, that was at the beginning of March of 2020. He was hospitalized March 6th, agreed?
Yes.
Of 2020. And he was in the hospital for 10 or 11 days, something like that?
No,
Wow.
5.
5 days?
5 days. I wonder who paid for that. Wow.
And when you took him to the hospital, did you notice foam coming from his mouth?
I noticed like some kind of, like, foam building in the corners of his mouth, kind of
Like
dry.
a dry white substance?
Yes. Sorry.
Now, pardon?
No problem. We'll just walk through.
All right. Now, you were asked a couple of questions in terms of whether that overdose was caused by heroin. Do you recall that?
Yes,
And you said you didn't know.
I didn't.
Do you remember telling the FBI that the overdose was from heroin?
I was speculating.
Do you recall telling the FBI where or whom the source of that heroin was?
Once again, yes, I do remember that, but I was speculating.
And was that Mr. Hall?
No,
Was that Shawanda Hill?
yes.
Wanda Hill, didn't we hear from her? That was the girl that was with him in the truck, wasn't it?
Did you know Mr. Floyd to purchase drugs from Miss Hill as well?
No,
Do you recall being asked whether he purchased drugs from Miss Hill previously?
I don't remember that, no.
May I approach the witness to, would it refresh your recollection to review a copy of your transcript?
Yes.
May I approach?
So let's show her statement where she said that. Then he'll come back.
So
He'll
just
say,
to
did
refresh
you
your
say
memory, there
that?
won't be a question before you at this time. So he'll go back and he'll ask a question once he returns.
For those that don't know it, there is the defense and the prosecution has jackets, or they will buy clothes for a witness so they look better. So this may or may not be her jacket. They could have been. She could have had a dress on that showed her tattoos, and they didn't want her testifying with the tattoos, so they gave her a jacket. And defense attorneys have a whole wardrobe to dress their clients before they appear in court.
Refresh your memory, so there's not a question before you that you need to answer yet.
Why not just give her her entire statement and let her refresh it without you walking back and forth?
And then that says he was buying drugs from her.
Well, let's start with that refresh. Yeah, I haven't got it. I'll go back to the podium.
Sounds like she speculated a lot in her sworn statement. Shocking. Does that statement
Ms.
have any
Ross, does that
credibility?
refresh your recollection?
Yes, but none of that said he was buying drugs from her.
You were asked, do you know who the woman was that he would have gotten that from? And your response was Shawanda Hill,
Yes.
right?
I was speculating at the time. I did not know that.
Understood. And you were asked, you said he liked getting drugs from her, and you said, mm-hmm, correct? That's what you
It
said.
says that in the transcript, yes.
Now, those same pills, you ultimately got some of those same pills from March, or similar pills in May of 2020, correct?
We got pills in May that reminded me of the same feeling. I don't know if they were the same pills. I don't know where they came from.
Right, okay.
'Cause
So
we
you
just got
had a
pills
second
everywhere and didn't care.
experience with those pills, right? Or a similar feeling to those pills,
I had a similar experience, yes.
right? And that was approximately a week before Mr. Floyd's passing?
Yes.
And by similar experience, you do you recall telling the FBI that when you had that, you felt like you were going to die?
I don't remember saying that, but I did see it in the transcript.
And is that how you felt, like you were going to die?
I don't remember feeling that way, no. I didn't recall even saying that.
You and Floyd, Mr. Floyd, excuse me, I'm assuming.
I would have asked her, do you remember anything about the statement? Were you at the statement when you gave the statement? Because it sounds like you don't remember anything you said.
I mean, what were you saved? Let me strike that. What were you saved in his phone as?
Mama,
Oh, he was calling Mama. He was calling her. It wasn't even his real mama he was calling.
Now, approximately a week prior to Mr. Floyd's death, you and Mr. Floyd again purchased pills from Mr. Maurice Hall, correct?
I believe so. I'm not sure.
Wonder why the
you
prosecution
recall-
didn't tell us that.
telling the FBI that you bought pills from Mr. Hall 1 week prior to Mr. Floyd's death.
Yes, but I wasn't there. I wasn't there. I didn't see anything happen.
Yesterday, when you met with prosecutors, did you tell them that you were in the car at a hotel
Yes,
when those pills were purchased?
yes,
And that you were on the phone with Mr. Floyd at that time?
yes.
Oh, but she
You
just
heard a
said she
voice
wasn't
in the
there.
background,
Yes,
and that was a voice you recognized to be from Mr. Hall?
I thought so, yeah.
But she just said she wasn't there under oath on the stand. This woman's changed her testimony so damn much she has no credibility.
And so
But she
between Mr.
cries
Hall, or excuse me, Mr. Floyd's hospitalization through March and the quarantining and all of that, March and April, Mr. Floyd had been clean during that time frame?
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, if you need
No,
a minute.
it's okay.
I'm sorry. I want to just, again, time frame becomes important.
Yes,
After Mr. Floyd was hospitalized in March, you were quarantining together, spending a lot of time together in March, April,
Yes.
and May, correct?
yes,
And for the majority of that time, Mr. Floyd was clean, right?
yes,
And it was your belief that Mr. Floyd started using again about 2 weeks prior to his death, correct?
I noticed a change in his behavior, yes.
That's when you noticed the changes in his behavior. And you described some of those changes in his behavior in that time frame, right?
Yes,
Do you recall telling the FBI that there would be times that he would just be up and bouncing around, and then there would be times that he would be like unintelligible?
I don't recall that, but
Have her describe it now.
Would you disagree if
Was
I
there
said that
ever
in
a
the
time?
transcript? That's in
no,
the
I wouldn't
transcript.
disagree with that.
I would ask her, was there ever a time?
Were you aware that Mr. Floyd was with Mr. Hall on May 25th of 2020?
Only in the aftermath.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he's got to clean up because she looks pretty freaking bad. She doesn't know what she said with the FBI when she gave a statement, and you went over it with her just yesterday, and she still don't remember anything she said, and she made it all up.
Hello again, Ms. Ross.
Hi, ma'am.
Just a few follow-up questions for you. And maybe try to go in reverse order, but counsel was asking you about, whether you knew these pills were purchased from Mr. Hall,
Yes,
most recently in May.
yes,
Talked to you about the hotel incident. And I just wanted you to clarify for the jury. You're not trying to mislead them or anything. What you're saying is you didn't personally see that sale.
no, I didn't. I just want to say what I saw.
Right. But you think that's probably where those pills came.
Yes,
You don't dispute that.
no, I don't.
Yeah. You just personally didn't see it.
Exactly.
So he's trying to make her look
And,
more honest.
And incidentally, what did he call his mother? What did he refer to her as?
He called her mama too, but it's just different the way he said it.
You wanted her to cry again before she left.
It's kind of hard to describe.
So if he were to say to somebody, "Mama," that could mean his actual mother.
Yes,
Just also a name he called you.
yes,
You were a mother too, right?
yeah.
Probably called all his baby daddy
Still are.
mamas.
I am.
Shouldn't use
always.
past tense. And Mr. Nelson read for you some things you said before, but when he was asking you about the May pills and how they made you feel similar to the March pills.
Yes.
But I wanted you to tell the jury, in your own words today, why you say that they had a similar reaction for you. What was it about it? So in March, you said the pills kept you up all night and were kind of jittery.
Yes.
Is that the same reaction you
Same
had?
effect. It was a stimulant.
And when you took that pill in March, that seemed different.
Yes.
Obviously, you did not die from it.
No.
And did you see
Maybe she didn't
yourself,
take
Mr.
as much.
Floyd, taking one of those types of pills in March?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Yep. So the pills that we were talking about you obtained in March
Yes.
that caused you to feel jittery and were different. Did you
Yes.
also see Mr. Floyd taking that kind of pill?
We did not take them together that time.
Did you think that he had some of them for himself?
Yes.
Obviously, he did not die in March.
No.
And
He needs
the
to
pill
follow
that
up.
gave you a similar experience in May.
He needs to follow up and say, you don't know whether he took 2 of the pills or 3 of the pills. Or did he ever take more than you and you take less? And he OD'd and you didn't. I mean, he needs to really follow up on that. I would follow up on that. Because
When you saw this change in his behavior prior to his death, in those 2 weeks, what did it lead you to think about, based on the 2.5, 3 years you had been with him, about how often he was using during those weeks?
I don't know.
Fair enough.
so she wouldn't know if he took 2 and she took 1. Maybe that's why he was so freaked out. She doesn't know the amount he
You
took.
were asked about your interview with the FBI and asked about statements you made.
And you
Did
made
the
most of the shit
FBI,
up.
as you recall, ever ask you, how did you know those drugs were from Mr. Hall? When you told them that you thought they were from Mr. Hall?
I just told them I thought that.
Now you're going to ask her that. You didn't ask her that yesterday when you were going over the statement, but now you want to ask her that. He wants her to cry so the jury remembers the last thing of her crying.
And the pills that we're talking about in May,
Yes.
I can't remember if you told me, did you see Mr. Floyd take any of those pills?
Yes, we took them together that time.
I'm sorry.
We did take them together that time.
And when he took those, obviously he didn't die, right?
No, he did not.
Did y'all take the
Did you
same
see how they
amount?
affected him?
He had a lot of energy.
And but he was okay after using them?
Yes, he was playing football, hanging out, eating. Just a normal day.
Incidentally, did he play a lot of basketball?
He played basketball too, but football was his thing.
That sounds racist, man. Why are you trying to push him into basketball? He already said he played football.
That's all I have here.
Anything further?
Man, you better recross. Come on, dude. Don't let me down. He's got to get in there that she did not know if he took the same amount as always, because the prosecution asked, you didn't die when you took it, but you don't know how much he took. And you don't know how much he took when he OD'd. And maybe he had a habit of taking more than you because he was bigger than you and he used more. And if you remember, the prosecution said in his opening that there's a thing about tolerance. So maybe his tolerance was more than yours, or your tolerance was less. I mean, he could eat her up right now, and I think he should.
Thank you, Ms. Ross.
Thank you.
Oh my God, I think he missed a golden opportunity.
With you? Yeah, if you could take a water, that'd be
All right. So, look, she was a bad witness. I don't know what happened before I turned it on, but I watched her for an hour, and I think she's a bad witness. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and just start posting these as I do them because it's eating up too much memory. I'm running out of disk space saving all these things. All right, we'll end that there. George Ford girlfriend testifies.